Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Spirit Coffee Talk. We are recording this on Friday the 13th, I just realized. Welcome. Anyways, that took a turn. As the week has, that's what we're going to be talking about today. So as you know, I'm jumping ahead with my lovely co-hosts, Ginette and Lisa, and we are the mediums and channelers of Avalon Spirit. Oh my gosh, my brain this morning.
That's
okay. Shouldn't have been the one to intro it. Like all morning, I'm like,
no, it's perfect. It's a perfect representation.
Yeah,
right?
This is what it is.
Yeah. Mine's been the same.
This is what it is. So yeah, it's been, we're 13 days into January, and it's been an interesting ride, I know, for me and for basically everybody that I've talked to, but there's a lot going on in the universal world, all over the place, that is facilitating that. And so we're going to talk today about what's the happity hap, what's been going on. The sun's been active, Mars has been active or not. It's been a lot. So welcome, ladies. How are we all doing?
Well, I think all of us are like very, like you said, it's like Friday the 13th vibe. We're like, but we want to talk about why, maybe like aspects to why this is going down. And so that we can all kind of connect ourselves in the understanding of what's going on energetically. So solar flares massively this week, like massively. Did we anticipate this? Did we know this was going to happen?
Well, when I was talking to Spirit, I was like, so we had, let me start here. We had solar flares January 5th, January 9th, and January 10th. They were all X-class solar flares, and X-class is the highest intensity class of all the different classes of solar flares. So within that, we had intensity on the 5th that burst and rippled out. Then it was compounded on the 9th, and then the ripples on the 9th didn't even finish. And then there was another X-class on the 10th, right? So this was 3 hammering events of electromagnetic energy being propelled from the sun, affecting our planet, communication, energetic grids, as well as affecting our energetics, our aura, our bodies, our memory, our moodiness, our everything compounded. And that's just the solar flares alone. So when I asked Spirit, what the heck, you guys? They said, didn't we say that this year would be the return of the light? And I was like, yes, you did. And they're kind of laughing.
Literally.
Yeah, and they're like, this is an intensity, but it's an intensity that can work in your favor if you're willing to ride the waves of what comes up. So the extra triggers, the extra uncertainty, all was asking us for more clarity. Because remember, when we were in Maui, we kept getting like, ask for what you want, ask for what you want. It was triggering these last pieces before we moved into Mars going direct, which is action and movement, which we'll talk about in a minute, so that we would have more clarity. But the clarity came in the form of not knowing.
Solar flares, Ginette?
So solar flares is when essentially the sun like burps out an energy from its core, and it creates this flare that we can actually see. And that flare creates an energetic pulse that heads towards all the planets. And so when the pulse reaches our planet, it reaches the magnetosphere of the planet and creates almost like, we could say like a ripple. And that as well also ripples onto our individual auras. So we'll feel it like a trigger, a moodiness, a tiredness, all of the different things. So it's an intensity.
Does it matter where we're located on the earth?
You know, like that's a good question. Directed? I don't actually know the answer to that. I don't know, because I would think if it hits anywhere in the earth, it would still ricochet around. But it would also affect us individually too. So I don't know the precise answer to that. I'm assuming things. Yeah.
And
so these solar
often
flares are
do
intense.
we have these X-class solar flares? More
well, so
so
here's
now,
the interesting,
I feel, than we did before.
We are.
Or more intense.
It is more intense. And so this year, so they've been studying these solar flares since I think about the 1700s, 1800s. And so they have kind of a cycle, there's a certain 11-year cycle of solar flare activity. And so the sun will cycle on different kind of every 11 years, it'll start a new cycle. This is cycle 25.
Okay.
So this year was predicted to be a softer year, not as intense. Last year was way more intense than they predicted, as will be this year. So we will see more solar flares. To the level of X class, though, was surprising. We will have often anywhere from like 20 to 60 to, well, it's hard to say, but like what could be average of about 20 solar flares of different classes within a month on a really busy year or cycle could be like 60 to 70. So what they predicted for us is way less than what's actually happening in terms of the amount of solar flares, and the intensity of solar flares is more than what they thought as well. So essentially we're getting like pushed. It's triggering. That would be the most, if I gave it one word, it is triggering. It triggers emotional responses, like I said, moodiness, anger, agitation, increased hunger, insomnia, anxiety, right? It's an impulse of electricity. So if we compare it to like when spirit comes near us, if we're not used to it, like when people first start feeling spirit, when they come near, they're at a high vibrational rate, they come near us, we feel anxiety or panic or something, we're lightheaded, that kind of thing. The same would happen is if we went and stood by a massive electrical grid, we would feel those same things because we're standing by heightened electricity. Okay. So when the sun bursts that out, that's like even more hitting the entire planet. So it's like, it's yet another angle of increased frequency, which if we don't know that is unnerving.
Yeah. So when I first learned how to integrate spirit's presence, and when my vibration, my personal vibration was being pulled up, and I was kind of going through timelines and like hitting my head, like, you know, moving through the motions. One of the things that my guides had to let me know to do was that this was a opportunity, and what the only way to like really go into that oneness of connectedness was to transmute this energy, because it's like you can't escape it, right? Because it's there. It's like trying to like outrun a spotlight, right? It's like you're there. And so I had to learn how to like transmute the energy. So like they taught me to like bring it in, bring it through like at my cellular structures, almost like picturing it through the biology, and then out through my feet to be absorbed into earth energy and then regenerated into, you know, earth energy. And so it is. So it kind of like that, they showed like that big round kind of energetic sphere that goes around you, through you. I'm wondering if that is, because I'm just thinking out loud here right now, with these solar flares, if this massive energy is to be transmuted so that we can bring it in to be absorbed by the earth's energy, to be reused. Is that
Absolutely.
kind of the purpose?
Totally. And when we do that, like some of the ways we have to transmute is by going through what is triggered in us, right? So like say an anxiety is triggered in us. Instead of running from the anxiety, we have to sit in it for a moment, take it in, look at what it's bringing up, and then move it, like you said, through our cells down into the earth, bring back what we want, right? So it's hard when we don't know where it's coming from. So that's why like whenever you feel really wonky or something's triggering, it's worthwhile checking the NASA website to see were there any solar flares, because that could be an instigator as to why you're feeling that. I do also want to say, though, there are some people that feel solar flares as invigorating, though, and energizing. So it's not just the negative. It's just a higher proportion, probably experienced in the more triggering way because of where we're at.
It's like adrenaline.
But some people will feel it like a motivator, crazy energy. Those maybe are the ones that can't sleep, but they're just booming throughout the day and they're getting all this stuff done.
You know, I wonder if that speaks to your baseline state, like in your body and your perception of it, because I've heard a lot of people talk about, if we talk about, okay, what does anxiety feel like in your body? For a lot of people, it's racing heart, it's shortness of breath, it's I get hot, I get shaky, I get there's like a nervousness energy to it. When you talk to professional athletes, they have those same things in their body before big games, before the Super Bowl. but they have a different perspective on it. It's my body is preparing me to go into this game, to rise to the occasion, to move forward. It's the same energetic feels. It's the same descriptor in the body. It's just looking at it in a different way. And how do I use it? So not to say you just feel anxiety and then you're like, it's fine, everything's fine, I'm fine. You know, we don't want you to bypass, but at the same time, if you can, as the two of you were saying, feel into, okay, what is this bringing up for me? What's happening in my body right now? Looking around, not going to die, nothing's going to kill me, because that's what our anxiety is our stress response is I'm unsafe in this moment, even though 9 times out of 10 we are not. Transmute that in some way, whatever that practice is for you, because it can be so many different things. If it's in your body, if it's an energy, if it's a mental thing, like working with that. And if that energy is still present, it doesn't mean you didn't do the things you needed to do. But if you're mentally feeling a little bit better about it, maybe a little less in your brain anxious, then turning towards, can I use this as a motivator? Can I use this to propel me in some way versus like paralyze me?
I think it's beautiful. It's all the consciousness behind it. And that doesn't mean it's an easy thing, because when we're in that like fight or flight,
things is really hard.
It is hard, especially when, I mean, look, we talked about this already, that humanity with this rapid growth and ascension of 100 years into 4 years, and we're knee deep into it now, maybe chest deep actually. We're tired. There's not a lot of reserves left to pull from. So then you put in solar flares, Mars being in retrograde, like that's trigger after trigger after trigger, plus our own personal healing. When we get a solar flare coming in, we don't have a lot of reserve to be like, wait a minute, hold on, let me check in. We're reactive.
Yeah.
Right? And it's hard to catch it.
Fiery, reactive.
Yeah.
Ugh.
But maybe...
And I'm trying not to judge that too. Like I've been learning about like understanding and integrating the light and the dark of everything, and knowing that, like, Elyse, you're the best at helping me to remember this. Not everything is sunshine and like unicorns. Understand that it's integration of all that makes the whole, right? Don't shut the door on that part of self, or else she turns a bit ragey. You know what I mean? I feel that sense moving in. I think that little bit of these flares and how it's been affecting me is like snappy. Real spicy, Elyse. Real spicy.
It's spicy. I've been spicy this week, and I've been
spicy.
Thankfully, like I've been very busy in the spiciness, which has been challenging because, and I think we're going to talk about this a little bit more in a bit, but there's also an energy of like, everything is happening and it's fast. And like, you know, my words of peace, ease, and grace this year haven't like fully integrated yet. And I feel like I've been running like 1,000,000 miles an hour this week and last week. And it's been hard because then these energies come in and I'm already up here. And so then it's like, and getting over that threshold of like real spicy is quick. It's quick and easy. And so
I've been dipped into our reserves.
Totally. Yeah. And so, yeah, I know. And so even the other day I was driving and I was alone in my car and I was feeling spicy, and I just started like, I turned on really loud music and I was like scream singing, and because I wasn't
the best.
Particularly upset about anything else. We were talking about this before. Like, can you go somewhere safe and like scream it out a little bit? But I have this like emo playlist from when I was, you know, really into some hardcore emo music when I was young, and I like turned on The Used and I was like, nah, in the car, like raging out for no particular reason. There was nothing inherently wrong, but it helped for a moment. And then
I like that. I think I'm gonna rock out to a little Alanis Morissette later. She's my She's my screamy girl.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
totally. Yeah,
channel my inner 90s, baby.
Get your screamo on, everybody. That's our advice this week.
Everybody channel their inner screamo. Let's talk about Mars now, because that is another huge energy. Okay, huge. So what's going on? What's down the pipe with that one?
So Mars is a planet of war, is what the general idea is, but it's like a planet that represents action and movement and momentum forward. Now, if we break that down even more, it can represent our desires, our passions, our anger, our aggression. So it's very like fiery, very masculine type energy. Again, not male versus female, but that action, do, react type energy. So here's the thing though, Mars can be in the negative where, you know, too much aggression and so on, anger, but Mars also can be like momentum, like I said, and movement, things falling into place, flow happening. Mars went into retrograde October 30th. So all the things that we were working on to want to put in motion, make happen, Mars, although some of those things could have happened, Mars was kind of pulling it back a little bit and slowing things down a little bit and dragging things, or in some cases, stopping it. And while that was happening for the last few months, Spirit has been asking us, what do you want? What are you manifesting? What do you desire? What does it look like? Over and over. And we keep setting these intentions and desires, but nothing happens. And it's because this was all a time to bring up as many triggers, healing, you know, old outdated narratives to the surface repeatedly, you know, keep emptying the bucket, bring out more, so that when it moves direct, which it did yesterday, we can get back into the momentum in our highest frequency possible at that time. Now, I do want to say one thing though with Mars, because of the influence of the other planets right now, it is a little slow. So yes, it's moving forward, but it's going to take until about February to pick up its speed. So right now is a good time to kind of like get back, walking and moving metaphorically in the direction you're wanting, knowing you can now, but don't freak out if things don't happen immediately, because Mars just needs a little time to get running again, kind of thing. So that means with it moving forward, we have more help to move the momentums that we've been waiting for, the desires, the manifestations, the alignments of things we've been waiting on. There's movement coming. And that's a really good thing. So a lot of people will start to feel that, although January kind of started with a real kick in the pants, we even had the full moon, the wolf moon, which was in Cancer, meaning it was watery, emotional, and everything, with solar flares in and around there. The 6th.
Oh my gosh.
So it's been like, January has been like slapped in the face. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
I'm going to go into January, Peg.
The
Peace, ease, and grace. Let myself flow.
Totally.
Totally.
Yes. Yes.
The image that I keep getting in my mind is I keep going to that Friends scene where Ross has the meltdown and he's like, I'm fine. It's fine. Everything is fine. He's like trying to convince himself.
Totally.
I don't know why I'm coming out all high and squeaky, but I'm fine. Like,
that's literally the beginning of January.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Man. Okay. All right.
But it's all purposeful. And a big thing that
always?
we learned, but a big thing we learned or are learning from this is perspective, right? Yeah. Like Elyse, you were talking about this before. Perspective is our greatest teacher right now and our greatest changer of experience. So Mars can trigger the out of us, right? But we could also then look back at that and be like, hey, what did I learn though? Oh, I learned this. Oh, look at that tool that I now have in my tool chest. Right? So like perspective is a big thing. And the solar flares
came in just to illuminate it even more.
Oh, yeah.
I keep seeing, every time I think of the solar flares, I see this loud, like, boom, ringing of the bell. So it's like, boom, and then it's got the, like, the vibrations that come off of it. I feel like that's how it's hit me, right in the head.
And it's not that, and it's not just the initial hit of it. It's the vibrations after the fact as you're like, oh,
and everybody else got hit, and their vibrations coming on were vibrating off of each other. You know what I mean?
So, you know, one other thing that Spirit told me too for this year, and it's making sense to me even just in the first 13 days of January, is they said, don't take it or things so personally. And when I take that sentence and put it on solar flares and Mars being in retrograde, plus we're still in Mercury retrograde right now too until the 18th. So there's another one.
Are we really? Are we in Mercury retrograde right now?
Yes, we are. Yeah, so that's mental game, right? Like, that's a lot. But here's the thing. If we don't take everything so personally, our emotions too, and we just get curious about it, then we don't have to do such a deep dive every time of shame and judgment and all this. It's like, okay, listen, I am in a pissy mood. I am triggered beyond anything. I'm just going to go into the other room for about 5 minutes. I'm going to scream my face right off and then I'll be back. And it's, you kind of can sometimes keep it logical like that and go do that, come back, shake it off, start again.
Right.
You don't take it so personal.
Right.
And not that that's always the answer, but that was something they said to me. And I've tried to do that the last few days and it's actually helped. It's like a perspective piece.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Yeah, I had these understandings the other night when I was having my own personal mentee bee, as the cool kids say, mental breakdown, for no reason, you know, as we do these days. And there was this piece about perspective, because so often we talk about perspective, and I'm still putting this together, so it's not a complete thought yet. But with the perspective piece, you know, for me, I would often be like, okay, well, the perspective is that shit is not working out for me yet, and I am pissed. That's what I feel right now. And then I would, you know, get a little grumpy pants with Spirit and, you know, tell them that I was upset or frustrated or like, help me out here, you know, whatever. And what they said, I had a little venti sesh, and then not long after that, they're like, all right, here you go. And I had these understandings about, like, oftentimes when we think about perspective, we're attaching it to, well, but this hasn't happened yet. But I thought I wanted this. I'm manifesting this, and this thing hasn't happened. And how do I, like, you're not helping me with that. But that's not perspective. That's an outcome. When we're talking about perspective is we're on a paradigm. We're on an experience of some sort. Perspective is taking that step up to the higher level. It doesn't mean you've figured out or had a solution or a resolution of a situation or something has come to fruition. It's taking that higher vantage point, detaching from the outcome and being like, what in this moment can I see differently? And that was a pinch point for me, because I was like, no, I was trying to have perspective be a different outcome, but we might not be at a place where we can have the outcomes just yet. There's still so much change happening. There's still so much, you know, we're getting hit with solar flares and energy changes and all these things. It's like the perspective is, can you see things a little bit differently? You can still be pissed. You can still be frustrated. You can still feel like you're stuck in a certain area, or like something's not flowing nicely, or I don't have my PEG experience yet of PCs and grace.
Pull back out of it.
Yeah, but maybe the perspective shift is like, everything's bubbling right now, so that eventually in a couple months from now, I'm going to start to experience more PCs and grace. It's like detaching from the outcome, which is so tough. But maybe then the perspective is, I have the perspective that I'm really attached to outcomes.
Well, totally. And sometimes it's really hard to see the whole when you're right smack in the middle, right? Like, pull yourself out and see it from the whole, because there's stuff on the other side that you're not seeing because you're so in it.
And when we're super triggered from like a biological perspective, we get like blinders on.
Totally.
So we can't see we can't see the rest of the things on that paradigm if we wanted to. So you have to take a step back and have a bigger view of things, because your brain is just not going to see, oh, maybe there are little pieces that Spirit is showing up in that are giving me peace, ease, and grace. One of the things was like, we have this whole process for the dogs. It's the whole thing. And I was like really pissy the other night about having to go through this process. And then my perspective shift was, okay, but I have to go through this process because the situation is what it is right now. I'm doing this so that in those little moments, I can have peace, ease, and grace by taking my dogs down the friggin' street to go to the bathroom because we can't do it right outside the house. That was annoying to me. But driving down the road, going into a parking lot that's empty, nothing bad's going to happen. Everything's fine. I can have that peaceful moment, even though it's wrapped up in something that I would like to see change. I can still find that. And so that was the perspective shift for me of, oh, maybe I am having little nuggets of that. But because I'm so grumpy pants, I'm not seeing that in this moment. And we can still be pissy about it and still want the outcomes and still call in the things that we desire.
Yeah, because we don't want to emotionally or spiritually or logically or whatever, like bypass the emotional thing we're feeling, it's like, acknowledge it. Don't swallow it, acknowledge it. But then when you can, choose to see it from a different perspective, because it'll ease up the intensity on you.
Yeah.
Like it'll lighten it just a little bit. That like little,
It'll take down the spice level a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
We're more at a medium than a
more
extra
of a medium
spicy.
spice level.
Yeah, exactly.
3
Not quite
spicy
mild.
peppers instead of 4. Like on the side of the label, there's like 4 spicy.
3 peppers, not
3
4.
peppers, not 4.
That's how we're going to start Spirit Coffee Talk for the next few months.
How
like,
many peppers
what's
today,
the spice
ladies?
level today?
Yeah.
5 out of 5, 3 out of 5. You know,
my poor family. I send them so much love. But they've got spiciness too. I just, I'm the general
I've noticed
manager.
it in my kids too. Like,
Totally.
and they're like so much more innocent than, not more innocent, but like they're just more in kid zone, right? And they're feeling it.
Yeah.
And I've been noticing other parents saying that their kids are feeling the intensity too. So like I think everyone's a little spicy right now.
Totally.
Some maybe just like it better.
Yeah.
Part of my spiciness is that my energetically sensitive dog is also being very spicy lately. And I'm just having the perspective of like, oh, okay, that's probably what's happening here. She's probably having a mow because she's a sensitive little Sally.
Yeah, totally.
One of the things that was just coming up for me in regards to Mars and this like action potential that you were talking about, Ginette, and where we're going is, I mean, I'm noticing this in my own experience, but they were just kind of saying that there's also this trickiness of we're feeling the energy of action, but our 3D worlds aren't aligned with that action yet. So that feels uncomfortable when you're like, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. Let's go. Let's go. And then you can't. That is an uncomfortable feeling for me in my body where I'm just like, I want to.
Are you ready to go?
In some respects, yeah. There's things where I'm like, if I could do this tomorrow, my brain is like, slow your roll, Elyse. No, you're not. But there are things that I'm like, that have come up in the last 13 days that I'm like, oh, shitski. I didn't think that was on the agenda this year.
Yeah.
And it's coming into my mind and coming in through intuition and feeling and this energy behind it. But like 3D world isn't there yet. And so there's a disconnect in that experience can be uncomfortable to hold.
See, I'm sitting here on my end and I'm like, no, I don't want to. I don't want to do it. No, I don't want to. I'm going to sit and light my incense and listen to my like rhythms and everyone else can just go away. Like, just leave me alone all day, every day, because I don't want to do it. I don't want to go outside. I don't want to see anything. I don't want to move from this spot. Leave me alone. You know what I mean? I'm so the other way. Like, I do not have momentum, which is probably good because I'm not doing anything.
But I think it also speaks to space, right? Like you have a lot happening. And so it's a great point because we're not all going to experience the energy of it and the momentum building in the same way. And if you're in a place where you don't actually have the space for the momentum in this like present moment, you're probably not going to, it's not going to manifest for you in the same way, but it doesn't mean that the energy behind it isn't coming or supportive.
It's a very good point.
Because I'm not for the things for me, I'm not ready to move on them. Like they're keeping me up at night because my brain is like, well, let me tell you all of the reasons why this is a terrible idea. Elyse, do not do that. Okay, great. Just
3
sleep
o'clock,
with my crystals.
right on time. Yeah,
Tell me all about it. I don't need to be
Spirit.
up early. Sleep isn't important to decrease my spice level. It's fine. It's good.
Oh boy.
All right. Well,
Hey,
I think
Hazel.
that's a good way to connect with everybody because it's very like spirit honored, but very human honored in all of our experiences. And I think that there's little tidbits, little nuggets in there that everybody can use, integrate, and reflect on for this week.
Yeah. And maybe just take a moment to like take a breath. We're okay.
Even acknowledging the spice level is okay. Be like, I'm at a top-notch spice level, right?
But even
that
like for
acknowledging
others,
space for it. Yeah, totally.
right? Like others, if others are really, a little extra intense, it's like, don't take it personally. Just give them a little space. right?
You guys
Like
ever
we don't need to
seen
get
the
involved.
book, How Full Is Your Bucket? It's like a kid's book.
Mm-mm.
No? Oh my gosh. Okay. This is one that we use all the time. So it's so cute. It's a kid's book, and this boy, his sister comes and like messes his stuff, and he throws his blocks at her or something, like they're screaming at each other. Then his grandpa's like, well, it's because of the bucket. And everyone's like, he's like, what bucket? And he said, everybody has an invisible bucket on the top of their head. And sometimes the bucket is full. And when the bucket is full and drops go into it, they're able to give more drops into other people's buckets. But once somebody's bucket is empty, it really feels like you can't see it, but they're like, it just seems like more and more emptiness is coming their way. But if you add to their bucket by like, even when you can feel your bucket being empty, being like, okay, got an empty bucket. What's going to help me fill my bucket is helping other people fill their bucket, right? And so like little affirmations or things will drop into your bucket, but will also drop into others. So understanding that if somebody, you can feel or sense if somebody's bucket is empty, acknowledge that. And yourself. And then he also is really cute. He's like, dogs have buckets too, because the dog, and it's really cute. And if you guys haven't read this book, it's an amazing book for adults and children. And it is a number, like I read it to my kids. Well, I'll have to bring it up. It's probably time for me to bring out the good old bucket book, but take a look.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. I think it's like a child psychologist that wrote it actually. And it's got fantastic imagery and everything. So how full is your bucket?
Maybe next week you should do like an interpretive reading on Spirit Coffee Talk with how full
Story
is your
time.
bucket.
Yeah,
Story time.
We're not going to talk.
time.
We're all just going to listen in meditation while Lisa emphatically reads how full is your bucket.
Oh, I have a couple. I got a couple that is like story time from Spirit
Story
for
time
sure.
with Lisa.
Yeah.
Well, that would be fun.
It's so funny.
We could
It's
do
so
an
funny.
extra, like, an extra episode once this month for story time.
I love that idea, actually.
That's a really good
it's
one.
funny that you even said the dog piece, because as you were talking, I was thinking, so like I was saying, I have this energetically very sensitive dog. And last night, it's been a rough week for her. And last night, she normally doesn't sleep with us.
Sorry.
Oh, it's good. It's good. We needed that. And last night I was going to bed and I was so tired and I needed a good sleep. And she's like a freaking, like all over the place. Usually when
Is this your baby?
Yeah, Ava girl. And last night Spirit was like, let her sleep with you. And I'm like, I don't want to. Also, don't tell John. They're like, let her sleep with you. And I was like, I don't want to. I need a good sleep. And she's like a freaking flailing Franny all night long and I'm not going to sleep. And they're like, just let her sleep with you. It'll help her regulate, because she's dysregulated. You're dysregulated. You're feeding off of each other. Just like regulate each other, but let her be near you because she'll calm. And she slept. I didn't even notice her all night. She slept so soundly. She's been snoozing upstairs all morning. It's almost 11 a.m. and she's barely awake. And so it's funny that you brought up the dogs have buckets too, because now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, yeah,
Her bucket was empty.
She's just a little spicy and she doesn't have any water in her bucket.
She's spicy without water.
Oh my goodness.
I love
That's
this.
funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. All right. Well, any last thoughts, feels, words of wisdom?
Speaking words of wisdom, let it be.
Yeah, right?
Let it be.
Totally. I agree. Let it be. Go slow and easy and just let it be.
Yeah.
Keep filling your bucket to help
Definitely.
with your space.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining us this week. Thanks, ladies. This was fun. This is my heart needed this. It was.
Yeah, me too. Big time.
When we're like, we're going to talk about this stuff, I'm like, I don't want to get ragey about it. So I'm so glad
But
that
it
it was
helped
lighthearted.
by acknowleding it. Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
God,
totally.
we're good for each other.
So, yeah. Okay,
All right.
well, thank you for joining us. Make sure you like and subscribe. Follow the lovely Ginette and her podcast. And we will be back next week.
Peace.